even more closer, I'm like, yeah.
That's all right. I could. Yeah. What did you want? Chuck, I got it. By me.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. Yeah, maybe. Actually, he goes one more over. One over. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Excuse me. What should we do?
Great. How you doing?
Good. Good to see you.
That's behind the
That's it right by me. There's seats in the
So you just survived election night? For the most part?
Yeah, it's all right.
Is that just for November?
For the winter.
You just started November. For those of November?
No, I started. Started early.
So, knock anything.
$5 went to research.
There's sometimes they're
They sure are.
Okay.
Somebody brought the wattage. We're just waiting on the ground. Yeah, squeezing it a little bit. Good. That's good. Tell my kid to bring his buddies back so we can make sure we can get out No.
We're at
Morningside.
that Tristan Beach Young coming through.
Probably not.
Better ball playing on here.
He's good. Better like me score.
I want to get playing again, so I thought this would be.
Yeah.
discussion, so. Alright, I'm gonna get ready here. So. First of all, I want to take the time to thank you for coming here. We've had some recent incidents that we want to talk to you about. We want to talk about what we're doing. But first of all, I just want to make introductions, and then I will turn it over to our police chief. So in this room, we have media partners, we have citizens, we have people who are involved with some health agencies, and obviously we have some people from our crew, which is, I'm just going to run down this front line, unless you want me to introduce you guys too. We have Captain Matt Hicks, we have Chuck Garner, we have Brian Pike, our chief of police, we have the county prosecutor, Grant Loebs, we have Kurt from Kurt's Pharmacy, and Twin Falls City Mayor Don Hall. So with that, I'm going to turn the time over to Chief Pike. He'll have a few remarks. We have some statements that we will make, and then really this is an informal discussion where we want you to ask those questions, because this group that's here is going to help us inform the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh, and I just want to thank everyone for coming out this afternoon. I know it was short notice, but I appreciate everyone coming out, especially on a Friday afternoon. You know, obviously we have some good news to share with you regarding the recent robberies, and specifically the one that occurred yesterday. But more than that, I think the real goal of today is to have a discussion about the recent trend of pharmacy robberies and what we're doing and what we have done to address this issue. Unfortunately, what we're seeing is this is a national trend that's arrived on our front doorstep. If you do a quick internet search, you'll see how prevalent pharmacy robberies are. And I don't say that to make excuses for what's happening in our community, actually quite the opposite. But I also think it's the reality of the scope of the problem that we're dealing with. The City of Twin Falls has been committed to maintaining the quality of life that we've all come to enjoy. As a matter of fact, that's why we call Twin Falls home, because we like the place that we live in, and we enjoy living in this community. And I want you to know that the Twin Falls Police Department is committed to aggressively and proactively investigating these types of crimes to ensure that Twin Falls remains a safe place to live and work. And like I said before, I don't say that to make excuses, because I think that as your police department, we take ownership in the problem and what's happening in our community. I think we all understand the importance of working together towards the common good of our community, and that's why we've asked some of our partners to be here this afternoon to talk a little bit about some of the things that we're doing. So this is a little different. This is not going to be your typical press release. I'm not going to just read out a bunch of information. This is really designed to be a discussion with our partners, with our media partners, and the citizens of our community to talk about these issues and to work through them. So I'd like to do both. I'd like to share with you the events of yesterday and ultimately what happened, because I think there's some really great police work that occurred. And I think our community deserves to know what their police department is doing to address these issues. But then I also want to have a discussion about some of the ways in which we're working with our partners to within our own community to address this issue on the front end. If you think that we're just waiting for the next robbery to take place, then you would be wrong. We're aggressively and proactively working with partners trying to address this issue. So with that, I've asked Staff Sergeant Chuck Garner to talk a little bit about the events of yesterday and what occurred, and kind of walk you through that investigation.
Good afternoon. As Chief Pike said, I'm Staff Sergeant Chuck Garner. I am the supervisor of the Criminal Investigation Division. Yesterday, Thursday, November 6th, at approximately 1:30 p.m., an attempted robbery occurred at the Shopco at the Magic Valley Mall. Approximately 20 minutes later, our officers were dispatched to a Walgreens drugstore located on Washington Street North. In both of these cases, an adult male entered the pharmacy, presented a note to the staff there demanding prescription medications that were all controlled substances. These medications included oxycodone, OxyContin, hydromorphone, and methadone. No weapon was displayed in either robbery. During the Shopco robbery, the suspect was seen leaving in a green Jeep Cherokee. As part of our partnership with our local pharmacies, our dispatchers notified all the other pharmacies in Twin Falls of the robberies, provided a vehicle description and a suspect description. yesterday at approximately 17:30 hours, our patrol officers were dispatched to the Orchard Pharmacy inside Swenson's Market on Washington Street South. A male suspect, matching the description of the robbery suspect, was in the store and purchased a box of syringes. The suspect and a female left the store in a green Jeep Cherokee. Based upon these descriptions, some of our patrol officers recognized a possible suspect to be one Brody Trout and his girlfriend, Monique Escobedo. Officers learned that they operated a green Jeep SUV Cherokee, and they lived at 1166 Sunburst Street. At approximately 7 p.m., officers were able to stop a green Jeep Cherokee leaving that residence with Trout driving and Escobedo as a passenger. Officers were able to arrest Trout for possession of a concealed weapon, and Escobedo was detained for questioning. Interviews were conducted at the police department, where both admitted their roles in 5 pharmacy robberies that occurred in Twin Falls this year. During these interviews, officers also identified Bradley Holcomb as their accomplice in several of these robberies. At approximately 2 a.m., 2 search warrants were simultaneously served at Holcomb's residence at 303 Washington Street North and at Escobedo and Trout's residence at 1166 Sunburst Street. During these search warrants, evidence was secured that further tied them to these pharmacy robberies. All 3 suspects were arrested and taken to the jail, charged with multiple robberies, conspiracies, and other crimes. Officers and detectives were here till past 6 a.m. Working on a case that began at 1:30 the previous day. After about a 22-hour day, we were able to go home.
Thank you, Chuck. One of the things is that, and we've given you some information on the robberies, because we've had 9 robberies, it's a little confusing sometimes. And I've asked Captain Matt Hicks to put together kind of a chronology and to walk you through some of the history of the robberies and a little bit of the outcome where we're at. So yesterday's investigation actually wrapped up a number of these. We'd like to share that with you.
Most of you should find this sheet within the handout you were given if you want to follow along with me, just to make sure everyone's on the same page. By our counts, at the beginning of the year, we had 9 robberies which have occurred in the pharmacy here in Twin Falls. On March 10th of this year, the Kmart robbery occurred at approximately 8:59 p.m. During that robbery, a note was presented, and 3 people were subsequently arrested. Dana Merrick, age 38, Christian Merrick, age 17, and Mitchell Christensen. I want to stress that in this case and all the other cases, the people that have been arrested have not been convicted of a crime, and their presumption of innocence is maintained throughout this. It's my understanding that Dana Merrick has subsequently been charged and convicted of a robbery in Utah, is currently serving time for that offense down there. On March 23rd of 2014, a robbery occurred at 4:03 p.m. in the Shopko Pharmacy. Also within your handout, you should find these images on a piece of paper here. As of this time and date, this robbery remains unsolved. We are still seeking information regarding the identity of this person. That photograph can be presented to you electronically if you wish. Our investigators are examining the possibility that it is connected to the other parties involved in the robberies, but at this time, the identity of this person is still not known. On June 27th of this year, at approximately 9:18 a.m., the Walgreens at Blue Lakes in Hayburn was robbed, and subsequently, we believe that the 3 people that Staff Sergeant Gardner mentioned, Bradley Holcomb, Brody Trout, and Angelique Escobedo, are involved in that case. And again, I want to stress, they have not been convicted of a crime. Their presumption of innocence continues. On September 17th of this year, the Walgreens at Washington Street in Poline was robbed at 8:14 p.m. Again, based on the evidence that Sergeant Gardner and his team uncovered yesterday, we believe that Holcomb, Trout, and Escobedo are involved in that robbery as well. The 5th robbery by our count on September 29th of this year occurred at 7:27 p.m. at Walgreens, again located at Blue Lakes in Hayburn. Based on the evidence that we covered yesterday, we believe that Holcomb, Trout, and Escobedo conducted that robbery. At 8:25 that same day, less than an hour later, the Kmart pharmacy was robbed here in town. And again, based on the evidence, we believe that Trout and Escobedo were involved in that incident. The 7th robbery by our count occurred on October 25th at 2:50 p.m. at Seymour Drug on Main Avenue. Our department made an arrest shortly thereafter of Billy Joe Bodenhofer, age 34, of Twin Falls, and I believe he is still facing charges on that robbery. And again, the incidents which occurred yesterday, robberies number 8 and 9. First, which occurred at 1:34 p.m. at Shopko Pharmacy. Again, based on the information we've uncovered, we believe that Trout, Holcomb, and Escobedo conducted that robbery. And then just 24 minutes later, at 1:58 p.m., we believe that group robbed the Walgreens pharmacy at Washington and Pulline. Again, I stressed in the beginning, I stressed throughout, I want to stress it again. These people are considered presumed to be innocent. They have not been convicted of a crime, but they are currently facing charges related to all the instances which you described.
Thank you, Matt. One of the concerns that we have as an organization is that sometimes you get so busy doing your job that you realize that you don't share probably as much information with the community as we need to. So the idea is that we're not really working these cases when in fact, we're working around the clock aggressively to solve these things. The other thing that we're doing is we do a lot of proactive work in this community, working with our community partners. I think a long time ago we recognized as a department that we simply cannot work in a vacuum. It would be a terrible mistake as an organization to believe that we had all the answers and that we were aware of all the concerns of our community. And years ago we started building relationships within our community to address these issues and also to supply us with information about how we do our job and what's important to our community members. And I've asked Lieutenant John Wilson and Kurt Hefner from Kurt's Pharmacy to join us today to talk a little bit about some of the proactive work that we've done as an organization with our partners to address this issue. So I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Wilson. Right here. Oh, sorry, John.
Thanks, Chief Pike. Going back to last March, even previous to that, members of our Detective Bureau and some of our patrol officers would talk about the national trend of pharmacy robberies that we saw when we would read magazines, when we would go to Fox News or MSNBC. It seemed like these were occurring frequently, and we were hearing about them a lot. Our first of the recent pharmacy robberies goes back to March. Right after that, I was conversing with a friend of mine who is involved in, I believe it's the Magic Valley Pharmacists Association. Right. Would that be it? Yep. His name is Troy Jackman. He was one of the officers with the association, and he approached me and a couple of my detectives at the time about attending one of their association meetings and talking about pharmacy robberies, some of the national trends, some of the things that maybe we could do locally to prevent robberies and to be in a better position to solve robberies if they occur. So that was one thing we did, is we attended this meeting. I think it was probably attended by, Kurt, you can maybe help me there, maybe 60 pharmacists were in attendance. And we talked a little bit about a lot of things, and a lot of crime prevention issues were discussed. And obviously, we saw what happened in the subsequent months with, I believe we had 8 more robberies. And I know that the pharmacists were concerned. They see the national drug trend that we all see, with prescription medication abuse being, really the main drug problem that our community and most other communities in our country are facing. And so we were kind of in a hurry to sort of try to put things in place to help deal with the trend of pharmacy robberies that we're seeing. And beyond that, we met more recently with some of our other local pharmacists and discuss some other things that might be effective in terms of crime prevention. Some of the things we're doing is we actually, for years, we've had members of our detective bureau go into banks and other financial institutions and talk about robberies, what to do during a robbery, how to be a good witness, how to be safe. And most of those things are also taught to employees in the banking industry, because bank robberies have been occurring, frequently since, the 1920s in our country. And a lot of that sort of transposes right over into what we're doing with our pharmacists. We're instructing our patrol officers to become familiar with our pharmacies, all 17 of them that we have in town, to understand what the layout is of the interior, to, if they can, become familiar with the employees. And we have put in motion getting floor plans put together, so our officers, when we're responding to pharmacies, have an idea of what the pharmacy looks like on the inside. And it has become a priority with the police department to have our patrol officers understand what's going on with pharmacies and to be able to respond effectively. And maybe I'll let Kurt talk a little bit about what the pharmacists themselves are doing and in terms of with their own employees in their own stores.
Thank you, Lieutenant. After having a few meetings with the police department, many of the store owners, pharmacists in our community are decided to be a little more proactive, making sure that, we pay attention to things. It's kind of like anything else. I don't really think about home break-ins until my neighbor's house gets broken into, and all of a sudden I'm worried about it. And the same thing with pharmacy robberies. I kind of thought we were immune. We're in a small town. I know there's a drug problem here, but I didn't think it would escalate to this level. Police department's been very, very helpful in coming down and looking at my store, looking at entries and exits, our surveillance. Most pharmacies have a surveillance system and a burglar alarm system, because we know what we have in our stores, and so does some people in the public have what we have. So after having them come in, we just kind of looked at what resources are available. And that would involve, other security systems, maybe putting in panic buttons, things like that. So I've talked to my people that do my alarms, and we've enhanced what we have, try to get maybe high definition cameras, so that if we get a shot. We had a close call with the Save More. The gentleman that robbed that store just moments before was in our store. And I wasn't there. My pharmacist was pretty cool-headed. He kind of just ignored him. Just kind of let him sit there, and we see it on the tape. He's just nervous as a cat. And he finally just got out of there. Unfortunately, he went to Save More and had a gun and held them up at gunpoint. But that was that close for us. So I thought, what would it hurt to have all of this extra help? So that's what we're doing. And we appreciate your help and working as partners, really.
Thank you. One of the goals of today, when I started, I said that I really wanted to have a discussion, and we will open this up for some questions here in just a few minutes. And I've tried to bring in a number of partners, a number of individuals here to help address some of your questions or maybe some of your concerns, and to have an honest conversation. Part of that, having an honest conversation, is including the men and women that actually are involved in working these types of crime. And I've asked Detective Matt Gonzalez to join us today. Matt works in our narcotics unit. He sees the issues on a daily basis. And I've asked him just to provide some idea of what some of these trends, the drug trends, look like related to pharmacy robberies and some other things to share with you.
To start, I'd like to reiterate a little bit about what has already been said. Chief Pike, he talked a little bit about being proactive and a little bit aggressive with these sorts of activities with the robberies and such. And in our unit, we tend to go out and really try and meet with offenders that we know live and work in these circles to find out who is involved in this, how these drugs are being abused, where these drugs are coming from. Some of the things that we get questioned on a lot is, and we ask people when we go out into the community, is what do you think the biggest problem is as far as drugs are in our community? And we get a lot of typical answers: methamphetamine, sometimes marijuana. What a lot of people tend to find when we start to explain what we're seeing is that prescription drugs are becoming an increasingly large problem. When I joined the unit several years ago, what we started to see was that people were, initially they were obtaining prescription pills by fraud or subterfuge, which is simply they would get a prescription and they would alter it for more pills, a different type of pill that met the specific need that they were running into, an addiction when I say need. So we saw that, and we would work those cases as aggressively as we could. We worked with the pharmacists who would get these prescriptions from doctors. They would note that something might be a little off, and they would call us. We would take the investigation and run with it from there, wherever it would lead us. And then, as we started to see that prescription pills were becoming more and more prevalent, people are out doctor shopping, pill seeking, really looking to get a hold of the controlled substances. And when we talk, the most specific controlled substances and most sought controlled substances are going to be your OxyContin, your Dilaudid, or hydromorphone, hydrocodone, those types of drugs, morphine, all controlled 2 opiate-based drugs. They're highly addictive if abused. Most people in the community have received some sort of injury where they've been prescribed these pills. Most people we talk to that don't have an addiction say the pills make them they don't feel good, so they don't take them, and then these drugs sit in a shelf, in a medicine cabinet, in a box, somewhere like that. So back in 2012, the police department actually put what's called a drug take-back bin in the lobby of the police department. Anybody that has these pills and they're just sitting because they don't take them can actually bring them down to the Twin Falls Police Department and put them in this bin where they're ultimately taken and shipped off for destruction. Since 2012, October 29th is the first reported date that we have that we've started taking drugs back. We've destroyed approximately 1,089 pounds of drugs. So in 2 years, we've had multiple citizens bring down the drugs for destruction. The reason that this is so important on the narcotics side is if grandma has a prescription and grandma's son might have an issue with addiction and grandma doesn't take them and grandma doesn't pay attention to the drugs at her house, grandson or whoever can come to the house, take these pills, and all of a sudden it becomes a problem for us in the narcotics world because grandson can use and abuse or grandson can sell. One of the things that we find, and speaking in pharmacy robberies particularly, is the turnaround for sales. In Twin Falls, what we tend to find on kind of a low and average is that a opiate-based drug, so OxyContin or oxycodone, sells for approximately $1 a milligram on the street. So a 30 milligram pill will sell for approximately $30 on the street. This is obviously highly lucrative because these pills are small, and in these cases where these people are going and robbing our pharmacies and getting, several bottles or whatever, you're talking hundreds of pills, which turns around into thousands of dollars on the street. It also turns around and makes a huge overdose problem. One of my partners has actually done a research on this and met with the coroner's office and done the research for how many drug overdoses have occurred since we've started paying a lot of attention to the prescription drugs, and the number's pretty astounding. I believe in 2012 the number was approximately 70 drug-related deaths due to overdose through Twin Falls County alone. Like I said, they're highly profitable. That's some of the driving trend behind this, as well as the addiction portion, as these pills are highly addictive. And these people that will offend in this manner tend to see this as an easy way to either A, get money, or B, get the fix.
I think what's sad is that a pill that's designed to, for a legitimate purpose becomes abused. And that's really the issue that we're dealing with here. We're not dealing with the issue of the prescription, we're dealing with the issue of the abuse of the prescription. The other thing that I want to go back to before we open up for questions is that when I started, I talked a little bit about national trends. And I know, like I said, you can Google this and you'll see this in national trends, but there's a part of me, of being a member of this community, that kind of refuses that national trend. I don't want to be part of the national trend, and I don't think that the community members of Twin Falls want to be part of the national trend. So I guess my challenge to us as a community is that I think together we can address these issues. This is not a law enforcement specific issue. There will probably be other pharmacy robberies. There will be more people dealing with addiction. What we've seen here is that this occurs at all levels of the social structure. No one is immune to this type of addiction if the substance is abused, whether it's alcohol or prescription meds or something, you know, even more damaging. So this is a community issue. And one of the things as we move forward is, this is really kind of the design of what we're doing this afternoon, is that we want to engage our community. This isn't just our issue, and we don't want to treat it in a vacuum. We want to share it with the community. We want to find ways of engaging our community and addressing this issue, because we don't want to be part of the national trend. This is what makes Twin Falls the place that we all want to live, and it's not a prescription drug abuse problem. So with that, I will go ahead and open it up to questions.
Chief, can I
Yes,
make a
absolutely.
couple of points that I
Absolutely.
wish I could have done first? I just want to make a couple of points that it's important that people understand. That number one, these robberies are violent crimes. I know sometimes when we talk about it and we tell the details, people are wanting to, you know, were guns shown, was a knife shown, was someone hurt? Not yet. That doesn't mean it's not violent. A robbery is a violent crime, and I think you can talk to anybody that has been a victim or been involved in one of these, and they will tell you that you know, they were frightened, very concerned. So these robberies are violent crimes. Secondly, for the most part, our suspects in these robberies, and again following the nationwide trend, are extremely motivated people. I think in talking to people that understand addiction, they can tell you just how motivated these suspects are. If they have this kind of addiction, they will do whatever they have to do to get the drugs. And it's important that members of our community understand that that's how serious this issue is. These are violent criminals committing violent crimes, and they're highly motivated.
With that, I've tried to include a number of individuals in the room that could help address any questions or concerns that you have, and at this time, I think we'd be open to take some questions.
Chief Pike, before yesterday, before both of the robberies that took place, where were we at in solving those unsolved pharmacy robberies?
You know, I'm going to defer over to Staff Sergeant Garner, because he was working that.
Do you mind stepping up?
Oh, sure.
Please.
Well, we didn't have very many leads until yesterday. The events that transpired yesterday gave our detectives the little bit extra information we needed to be able to develop suspects and ultimately make the case.
Maybe this is a question for Officer Gonzalez. You say mainly a lot of these are because of an addiction. In these cases, in these robberies, were the majority of them because of an addiction, or were they doing it specifically to sell these, or a combination of both?
In this case, from looking at the totality of the circumstances, there was a little bit of both. In going in when the search warrants were served, it was apparent that there was an addiction issue going on, but there's also that financial aspect as well, because like I spoke, it's so expensive to purchase these on the street, and that's why people that are generally involved with this, other types of crimes tend to follow. You get property crimes, thefts, stuff like that, to help kind of feed and fill the financial gap that they need to get these pills. So in this case, I believe that there was a little bit of both of that as the motivation.
Yeah, I have a question too, going off of what Detective Gonzalez was saying. So what do you think leads to someone doing, you know, fraud on a prescription or something like that, to sending them to, you know, go in and rob someplace? Is it the expense or something else?
In these cases, a lot of these cases I found have actually stemmed from legitimate injury. You'll get somebody that is prescribed something because of something that happened. They get injured at work, they get something in their life. They take the pill, and as they take them, their body builds up this natural,
Tolerance.
tolerance, that's what I'm looking for, thank you, tolerance for the pill, and they become dependent on it because of the nature of the drug, and that's where it stems from, is the addiction begins to grow, not necessarily because they started life out as a drug addict, I mean, nobody does, but that's what I tend to see to be the common thing there, with starting out with the subterfuge on the prescriptions.
Yeah, robbery just seems like a lot further step, like a much worse crime than just, changing your prescription.
I think maybe one of the reasons we're seeing that is, I think the pharmacists have become a little better, and their pharmacy technicians about identifying suspicious looking prescriptions, ones that appear to have been altered. Oftentimes they'll reach out to the doctor when presented with something like that, and we've done a good job of collaborating in education on that, and I think that may have something to do with it. I can't say at 100%, but that could be a factor.
Do you think, we have 3 individuals involved in at least 6 of these robberies? Do you think now that you've got them, that you expect the number of robberies to go down considerably?
I hope so, but we still have opioid drug addicts in our community. I hope that we're sending a clear message that we will investigate you vigorously, and that we will do our utmost to catch you. But I think the chief said it earlier, we probably will have more pharmacy robberies. But I certainly hope we've made an impact.
Kurt, that leads me to my next question. As a pharmacy owner, what are your pharmacists doing to protect themselves? On our Facebook page yesterday, we had over 30,000 views on just one story alone, over 1,000 comments on there, with actual pharmacists saying that they are starting to have a concealed weapon with them as they go to work. Is that something that you guys are looking into and other pharmacies are looking into?
We're not. I don't think that's a good idea, quite frankly. I don't want to shoot somebody. I don't want to kill someone. I certainly don't want to be killed or shot. I've told my pharmacists, my employees, to cooperate, but be smart about it. We've tried to put in some resources, high-def cameras, panic buttons, anything else that we can think of. Be aware, look around. We got the phone call that Shopco got hit 10 minutes after they got hit, so we're on a high alert, So what I want to do is keep it a safe environment for my employees. I want to keep it safe for all my customers. I really don't want these guys in my store. Chuck is right about our diligence with prescriptions. It's the law. We have to be careful. I've caught many, many people, amateurs, fixing their prescriptions, changing, 24 into 240. It's out of 0. No refills, 5 refills. Just write the number 5. There's no doubt in my mind that I could take a prescription right now and fill it out and take it to any drugstore and get it filled. In fact, it's an occupational hazard. We know that. Professionals also abuse drugs. But we want to keep our environment safe. I know I'm not naive. I know there's still people out there that are probably going to resort to a holdup, but at least we kind of got this group put away.
And that leads me to my next one. Also, going with our Facebook post from yesterday, I had a lot of citizens on there saying that they're afraid to go to a pharmacy here in Twin Falls. Should citizens in Twin Falls be afraid to go and fill their prescription legally like they normally would?
No, I don't think they should be afraid. I mean, that's one of the things that I've alluded to. Twin Falls, we have a great quality of life, and we're going to do everything we can to maintain it. That's why I don't accept the national trend. I don't want it here. Doesn't mean that we don't have some work to do, right? There's lots of moving parts to this problem. But I think as a community, and like I said, I don't think this is a law enforcement specific issue. If it becomes our issue, then probably like a number of other issues, I think that we fell. We will do our best, and we will work hard, and we will make as many arrests as we possibly can. And at the end of the day, we'll still have a problem to deal with. So I think as the community gets involved, we can start identifying these issues. There's so many ways to help. A lot of us see either our loved ones or our friends struggling with some of these issues. We know that they have some problems. Let's get involved and start helping them find solutions and working through issues. But I think it's perfectly safe to go down to a pharmacy in Twin Falls and to get your prescription filled. There is, in prevention, to prevent violent crime is a very difficult thing to do. And I'll tell you why. There's so many, like I said, there's so many moving parts, so many dynamics that are involved. You think about the individual that's struggling with an addiction issue. I don't know what they're doing right now. I don't know at what point they're at, and I don't know when that addiction or their lack of their ability to find something to address that addiction, you know, whether it'll take place this afternoon or not. So it's almost impossible to predict. And that's the challenge when it comes to violent crime. Prevention is, I think prevention is a key, but part of that prevention component is the fear of crime. So we have crime, not only do we have the crime itself, and as Lieutenant Wilson said, it's a violent crime that takes place in that area, then you have the repercussions of that crime to our citizens. You know, they're sitting at home wondering, am I safe? Am I really safe to go down to a pharmacy and get a prescription filled? And the fear of crime becomes as paralyzing as crime itself. And we're very aware of that. It's one of the reasons why we wanted to meet today and have a discussion, because we think this is a community issue. It simply cannot just take place within the walls of our organization. We want to have a community discussion about where we're really at, have some honest dialogue, and move forward together.
Kurt, I had a question for you. I don't know how many specifically of these robberies happened with a note, somebody passing a note. I would imagine that the policy is to tell your employees to not confront the suspect and just give them what they want.
Correct.
To me, that sounds like a very easy crime. If I can just go into a pharmacy or anywhere and just lay a note on the counter and say, I want oxycodone, and they get away with it.
It does seem easy, but the consequences are pretty severe. So, you know, are you willing to take that risk? I'll be honest with you, I have not been held up in Twin Falls. I've been here almost 30 years. I've had a couple break-ins, attempted, they didn't work. I've gone in after hours and I call a police officer and they meet me at the door, particularly recently, because I'm not gonna change what I do as a pharmacist. But yeah, it does sound easy, and I think maybe that last guy just thought, well, you know, I don't wanna go to the doctor, I don't have any money, I'll just go get the drugs. These people are not very smart. They're stupid, you know, and they really are, and they're dangerous. And so, I don't know, you know, what they're thinking. It's like Chief Pike said, I don't know what's going through their head, but it's obviously not normal. And that's the other thing that we're dealing with. We've got a crazed up drug addict that's, you know, really got a monkey on his back. He really wants those drugs bad. I know some pharmacists that are carrying weapons. They, you know, I wish those guys would go in there, because they wouldn't be here now.
Officer Barnhart, is that the majority of these pharmacies' policies is to not confront anybody that's, okay.
Yes, I think that's pretty much a standard.
I have a question for Kurt too, maybe some of you officers as well. So I think it was just recently or is coming very soon that a lot of the opioid drugs are changing schedule. So they're
October
gonna be,
6th, we got
okay,
a
so,
change
yeah.
in just hydrocodone.
Just hydrocodone.
Went to schedule from 3 to 2,
Right.
which makes it more difficult to get.
And do you worry that, I mean, that might increase the likelihood that someone might
It has
turn to
not
violence?
affected our dispensing numbers one single bit.
Okay.
It makes it tough for grandma over at Bridgeview Manor to get her Norco, because now we have to get a new prescription each and every time.
Right.
Cannot be taken over the phone, it cannot be faxed, it has to be handwritten by the doctor, each and every time. Like Percocet, oxycodone is already scheduled to. So that's been going on. I have not seen, I thought, oh man, our Norco sales are gonna go down. I've had physicians call me, say, Kurt, what can I use instead? I said, these are your choices. Tylenol with codeine, the old Tylenol number 3. That no one uses anymore, is Schedule 3. I can take it over the phone, you can fax it, 5 refills every 6 months. And so we're seeing an increase in Tylenol 3, Tramadol, the non-narcotic pain reliever, Schedule 4. So those are your options. I don't think it's gonna change anything. We keep track of what we dispense, and my Norco hydrocodone numbers have not changed one single bit. My box of prescriptions has changed, because I got a new one every time. Used to be a little stack, it's a big stack.
And was the schedule change a reaction to addiction
You know,
issues?
it's a reaction to the abuse and to the death toll in people overdosing on hydrocodone. That's the way the DEA explained it to us.
Okay.
A lot of citizens have seemed to had a frustration with narcotics use in the Twin Falls Police Department with not getting these solved. What can you attribute to that? Is it lack of staffing? Is it just lack of evidence out there at the time of these crimes being committed?
Yeah, I think these crimes, if you think about what we have to start with, and really it ties right back into, you know, I know the theme here is community, and that really is the theme. A lot of the pharmacies have, most of the pharmacies have video. We've talked about improving the video quality in the pharmacies, about camera placement to help us. That's very, very powerful tool in identifying who these individuals are. But what I've found is that it's very difficult. You start with very little information, and you get as much information out as you can, and you start working leads. And I think from that standpoint, we've been very successful. I think yesterday's a pretty good example of the success that we've had in following leads and running down the leads as they're made available. But when you start, it's kind of like a vehicle burglary. Very difficult to solve because you have very little evidence to start with. So it really depends on what's provided.
I wanna just kind of tag on to that is, I know Chief Pike has talked a lot about the community. One of the benefits of alarming the community or making them aware, making them an actual partner in crime prevention is simply your eyes are everywhere. The community members are at these locations when these things happen, when unfortunately there is a limited number of police officers, we cannot be everywhere. So when you have people that are willing to take a minute and look at what's going on, see what's happening around them, and then be able to accurately relay that to the police officers, that's how these things come to fruition. It's simply the community being there, being proactive, wanting a better community, wanting, the frustration to go away, wanting to be safe when I go down to the pharmacy, so people will pay attention, people will provide good information that, in this case, the events of yesterday, led to police officers going, aha, aha, which led us to where we were last night.
Officer Barnhart, all of the ones we have listed here, there's only one that's not solved yet. And of course, all the others are by the same people. How can you convey the message to people that are contemplating going into a pharmacy and robbing it, that it's just a stupid thing to do, that there are too many cameras, too many people watching? You walk in there with a mask, you're certainly going to get caught. What message can you send to them?
Sergeant Garner, Benito. Captain Barnhart, it's funny every time you say that. So,
you should have hit me the first time. Sorry.
Well, I would just say it's not worth it. Robbery is one of the most violent crimes you can commit, and I don't know the maximum penalty off the top of my head, but
It's life in prison.
Okay.
People, it's like crazy.
so you're running the risk of a significant prison sentence if you get caught. Hopefully we've demonstrated that our willingness, our determination, and our ability to investigate these crimes, coupled with the penalty, it's not a good idea.
I have a two-part question. Kurt, first of all, working in the field of security systems, would time safes be an option?
They're not, but first of all, we don't have these drugs in safes. Okay, they're on our shelves, because these are popular items, we're dispensing them all day long. Some pharmacies do kind of put them in a lock and key thing, but even that's a bad idea, because they know where the safe is, or they'll tell you, go to the safe, and then they get everything. So the federal government and the state government has told us to disperse it amongst your regular inventory, so that's not so obvious. As a young pharmacist, I remember we did have it in a safe, we had the key around our wrist, because we were in there so much, and the guys would come in and say, go to the safe. Or the cabinet, we call it, because it was a big locked area. And they got everything.
But such as a convenience store that has a time safe to where they can't get changed for X amount of time.
But these guys aren't after money. None of them have taken any money,
Yeah.
which is weird. We got money in our store too. We sell prescriptions all day long. Not a lot, but quite a bit. Depends on the day. And they don't even ask for money. I mean, it just blows my mind. Because they're selling it to get money, mostly.
What about giving them something other than what they're asking for, like a sugar pill that looks like hydrocodone? I mean, I don't know what they.
Well, we thought like more like cyanide, but pharmacy humor, right? Yeah, or something that's going to blow up. We watch TV, we know how it works. I don't know what I'd give them. I think they probably know what the stuff looks like as well as I. You know that every pharmaceutical drug has an imprint on it. You can go on the computer. I get moms all the time say, I found this pill in my son's pocket. What is it? I said, do you have a computer? Yeah, go on Pill Finder. And it asks you, what does it look like? What's the number? What's the color? What's the size? And it tells you exactly. We use it sometimes to identify medicine that maybe got misplaced. These guys use it to find out what they're selling and buying. I think that, I don't know. I mean, I tell you this. I would not give them everything in my store. It would take 3 people to carry it out. One guy could not carry it out, controlled drugs. And I'm just talking about the oxymorphone and morphine and oxycodone, oxycontin and Dilaudid and those things. it's a huge product. It's, you know, it's what we sell every day, all day, unfortunately.
One of the things that we're doing, working with I'll use the term partners a lot too, because I believe we really are partners. We are working with our local pharmacies. We are looking at, different technologies. We are looking at and exploring options. What this looks like tomorrow, I can't tell you for sure, but I think it's a dynamic, environment. It's ever changing, and I think we're always open to suggestions, ideas, and new technology to harden, so to speak, the target.
Don, let's get you involved here. As a former police officer and now current mayor of the city of Twin Falls, what message do you have for the citizens here about just on this issue in general?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm here twofold. I'm really here to celebrate the fine work that was done by our police department. Really celebrate that. Good old-fashioned police work and hard work. As you heard the officers tell you, they put in over 20 hours in one day to help solve this. And their dedication to the community, it should be commended. But I also grieve a little bit. If you think about citizens in our community that become addicted to these substances, they're good people. They were good people before. And they become addicted to a substance to the point that they would commit a robbery, a violent crime. So part of it is that my heart goes out to those folks. Okay? I don't excuse what they're doing. They're accountable for what they did. They need to be punished if they're caught. But it got to that point. So I guess really the message is to the families of our community. If you see some issues with your family members, and I bet if we polled everyone in this room, everyone would raise their hand and say, I have a family member or a friend that's been involved in these kind of activities and suffered from it. If you have some folks in your family, your close friends, reach out and get some help for them. I think that's really important.
A question for you. Has the city council or city staff too been talking about addiction issues, especially with prescription drugs in the city? Yeah,
absolutely. Several of us have been discussing this. We're going to be getting with our police department, with our city staff, and seeing what more we can do. I will tell you, I think we're doing tremendous things. But are there other resources? Are there other things that we can do as a community? Because and we need to hear from the community what their ideas are as well. Again, I guess I'll reiterate what Chief Pike said. This isn't a police problem. This is a community problem.
Chief, for my second question, we're talking about commercial burglaries for these pills. I've noticed an increase myself in residential burglaries. Do we see a connection between the two? People looking for prescription medications or under the influence of medication when they're committing these burglaries?
I'm going to refer over to Chuck and to Matt on what you're saying.
Well, I think police, we've always known that a lot of property crimes, burglaries, thefts, are driven by drug addiction simply because of the cost of the product. It's a fair assumption that as addictions rise, you could maybe expect to see a rise in home burglaries, vehicle burglaries, thefts, particular burglaries in search of, with the main motivation of finding prescription drugs in someone's home. I'm not really aware of high numbers with that. I'm aware of some cases in the past where people used pretext to get in the home, knowing that someone had something there and then committed the theft, but breaking in the middle of the night, really haven't seen much of that.
Thank you.
I apologize. If somebody has an important question they really want to ask right now, that's fine, but I did promise the media we'd have some additional time left over if they want to conduct individual interviews with our staff members. So, barring any objections to that, we'll wrap this up now. For any of the media that want to have one-on-one interviews with any of our staff members, you're more than welcome to do so. And we appreciate you all coming. We'll post a lot of this information to our website, tfid.org, and we encourage you to also stay involved with YouTube.